And I just want to say, so in Aquarium Business Academy, we were talking about, it's like, you do your art, you do your work, you keep on giving your gifts, and it's like 40 years. But just so, so everybody can get some of the people who have a little less of a chronology on the planet Earth in this incarnation, this is, people think it's an overnight thing, there's all these kind of ideas about the way this, and it's like, you just keep on giving your gifts, and it takes a lot of grit and strength to do that. And so happy that you are being recognized for those great gifts and such a beautiful, and just from our conversation at Aquarium Business Academy, I was so happy to see that. Very, very important success story. But you just keep on giving your gifts anyways. You just keep on giving your gifts anyways. And that's and all of the visionaries, all of the artists, all of the trailblazers, all of the leaders, what makes them that is that they're willing to hold the pose longer than everyone else. Until the culture and until the politic and until the environments and until the economies are able to see it from their perspective. That's what being a visionary is. Because my friend Alan was telling me last night that they told Queen that, I haven't seen the thing yet, the film, but they told, Freddie Mercury, like, nobody's going to listen to a 6-minute rock song. It's like ridiculous. And then they told Mike Myers when he wanted to put it into the Wayne's World movie, nobody's going to want 6 minutes of that song in the movie. And he was like, I'm not doing the movie unless you let me, use the full song. And so he fought for it. And I guess in this, has anybody seen it? But I mean, he plays the part. He plays the record producer who tells them, like, he plays the part of the naysayer, which I thought was good irony. But any visionary, anyone who's up to something in the world, the question you have to ask yourself is, how long are you willing to hold the pose while everyone gets their shit together and sees it from your perspective? That's basically, and how about if they never do? Well, then you get the Van Goghs and if they never see it from your perspective and you die trying. Are you willing to do it? And if you're not, then, you have to be clear about what you're willing to do and how much you're willing to put into it. Because then you can have a real relationship. It can be not a non-reality, but it's real. Like, I'm willing to do this for 11 months, but not 11 years. Which is fine. But then, you have to kind of organize your scene around that so that that I could, and the same thing for a relationship. If you want a relationship or you want your relationship to get better or how long are you willing to kind of hold the thing so that either you're magnetizing someone who's, interesting into your life, and then once you do that, you continue to have to hold a pose, which is, Yogi Bhajan said, all relationship is a worship, he used the word worship of the polarity. Which means you're not trying to make that person like you. They don't want to talk about the same things you want to talk about. They don't want to think the same way you think, and they don't want to do things the way you think things should be done. Because the whole point of why you're attracted to them is they are opposite. There's a polarity there, else there wouldn't be the friction of energy that would be what we call attraction. But then, I can't tell you how many countless women I'm, having to deal with who are like, well, he's not, I just don't feel like he can, really talk to me spiritually anymore. And it's like, whoa. You look at all these women in this class, you can talk to them spiritually. Leave that guy alone. Let him watch football. And love you well, and what's your problem? That's not what you're looking for, and that's what that you knew that in the beginning, but then now you're trying to make him your girlfriend, your yoga girlfriend. Not a good idea. So, we're all trail, kind of all people who are going to do something with this incarnation have the grit, which is what we're working on and what we're about to do right now. We're working on the grit so that you have the nervous system strength to hold a pose, a vision, an idea, a creation, an art, of whatever the thing is. Hold it long enough that the culture can recognize it as being, the next thing. That's what it means to be on the avant-garde. That's what it means to be, changing what the thought stream and the course of human history is. People aren't going to necessarily agree with you. And they're not going to necessarily understand you, and they're not going to, like we talked about earlier this week, this guru. We have a big project we're working on, and it's always those conversations of, well, how did you self-title yourself guru? It's like, what do you think I was doing? Like sitting around shaving my legs? Like, I think I'll call myself guru. I mean, like, where do people get an idea of that? It's very strange, right? And then on top of it, all the patriarchal kind of conditioning of what that word has been misused to understand. So then we just have to hold the new archetype of what it means to be a leader until people understand what it means to be a leader now. And it's not, and there's all sorts of, misappropriations and misnomers of what that looks like. Why? Because in the age of Pisces, what has happened? We have allowed, because that's part of our collusion, we've allowed the patriarchy to convince us to oppress ourselves. That's basically what's happened. So then, when you're looking at, or we're in an awakening practice, an awareness practice, so when you're looking at waking up to all of that, you're deconstructing all those things that you've metabolized, you've eaten, you've constructed in your system, and then made to be real. And that's what mind training is for. Because then you can kind of start to look, wait, this isn't even my thought. And I'm carrying this thing around and making it real, but it's not even mine, it's the culture's thought. Have you had the experience where you realize that you're thinking something that isn't even your thought? It's the culture's thought, it's the society's thought, it's the politics' thought, but it's not even my thought form. And not only have I taken it, but I've identified with it. I've projected it into what we call a perceptive reality. So my reality, my life. Then I've colluded with it. I've reacted to it. And then, you get something that Yogi Bhajan calls a mental intrigue. So basically, all of us have this stuff. So we have 1,000 thought forms. You've picked one of those things. You've thought it was you, because we think that our thoughts are ours, or we think that our thoughts are who we are, is a better way of saying it. So you pick that thing, then it starts to create a hormonal and endocrine kind of flush through the system, which means that it starts to embody into you. It becomes your actual body experience. So it starts to change your body. It starts to create disease in your body. It starts to create dysfunction in your body. It starts to create tension in your body. It starts to create stress in your body, whatever the thing is. So that's happening. Then we start to have a perceptive experience of that. So now we're creating our own reality of that thought kind of matrix. So then that's becoming the self-fulfilling prophecy. And if we really start getting, interested and addicted to this particular kind of stream of hormones and endocrine flush and brain chemistry and body chemistry that happens with this thought form, then it becomes a pattern form. So then it's something that we're, running over and over again. Then it becomes a habit form, and it becomes a way that we're moving through the world. And then we could call it something like a defense mechanism. So it becomes an infrastructure of thought. So it starts to build a scaffolding. Yogi Bhajan says all bad kind of thought habit forms have 5 sisters that move in with it. So now it has some friends that it's brought in that are now part of the scaffolding of that self-fulfilling prophecy in reality, that experience of reality. It's not reality, but that experience of reality. And then we start to react to it. So now we're having a reaction to our own thought form. So we start to react to it. We start to get, we're intrigued by it. We're repulsed by it. There's all this kind of polarity stuff that happens. We double down on it. We make it bigger. We push it away. We're having this whole drama with this thought form. And Yogi Bhajan calls it a mental intrigue. At that point, it becomes something bigger than just a thought form. It's a double down, switcheroo, bait and switch. All of a sudden, it becomes your whole entire incarnation. And now it's gotten bigger and bigger, and there's barely anything you can see beyond that experience. That's called a mental intrigue. Now, you take it another step from that, it becomes a phobia. So now you're afraid of the thought. You know how people who have experienced chronic depression, there's always this kind of like fear that they're going to get depressed again and they're not going to be able to get themselves out of it. Some of you in this room know what I'm talking about. So that is a great example of now that mental intrigue, which is, been affected the brain chemistry, affected the blood chemistry. So it's a physical experience of depression. Now that mental intrigue has become something that is even a deeper kind of well or a deeper cut in the psyche, and it becomes a phobia. Now, not only am I depressed, but I'm afraid of when I'm going to get more depressed. You get that? Yeah. Okay, so that's how these things start to get momentum, and then it's an avalanche, and then you're just, underneath the avalanche of this mental intrigue, and it's really, you've created, it's gotten so big because of you're intrigued. The subconscious mind is intrigued by it. There's an addiction to it. So we got to do that addiction meditation.